Hello and welcome back to Daily Buying Tips. I'm Dean Berman from Berman Buys. Today we're going to discuss what type of properties can foreign investors purchase in Australia. You may be thinking, why are foreigners actually allowed to buy property in Australia? Isn't it unfair for everyday Australians? After doing a bit of research myself, I found that the foreign investment structure revolving around laws in Australia actually makes a decent amount of sense when done correctly. See, the key thing with foreign investment in Australia is simply increasing Australia's housing supply, according to the Foreign Investment Review Board, or FIRB. The theory is really simple. Money comes from overseas and funds purchases of new developments in Australia. And without this money, it might be hard to supply as many properties as we need to supply for our growing population. Well, that's what the theory basically is all about. And from this money, there's flow-on effects to the Australian economy for locals, whereby new construction is creating new local jobs, which in turn creates higher wages potentially increased living standards. The other area where foreign investment helps is government. They increase the government's revenue through stamp duties and taxes. So here are some of the coolest findings I could come up with on foreign investment. Non-residents or foreigners, they can't purchase established residential property, which goes back to that initial definition of increasing Australia's housing supply, which makes total sense. So if you can't buy established housing, you're not limiting Australia's housing supply. Therefore, the only things they can buy are things that are going to increase Australia's housing supply. Things like vacant land, whereby they have to build the property within 4 years, or else they're considered to be land banking. The other area where foreigners can buy is off the plan on new construction. This is why foreigners can generally get what's called an exemption certificate when purchasing an off the plan apartment, as that development meets the definition of what exempt means under the Foreign Investment Review Board, which is a building or multi-level dwelling with over 50 properties in it. And the whole purpose of it is, once again, to increase Australia's housing supply. So in that case, a foreign investor would not need to get an approval from the Foreign Investment Review Board to purchase property in Australia. This isn't the case for house and land packages or townhouses for foreign investors. Another really interesting area is called a vacancy fee. Basically, it's to encourage more rental properties available in Australia, therefore reducing prices on rentals to not have a shortage of rentals for local residents. What happens is, if a foreigner stays or resides in an Australian property for more than 6 months out of a 12-month period, i.e. a year, they have to pay this vacancy fee, which is effectively like a tax to the government for a period of them going over that 6-month period, which is generally worked out on a case-by-case basis. Commercial property, on the other hand, seems to be much more relaxed when it comes to the Foreign Investment Review Board, as foreigners don't need approval generally. The only time they usually need approval is if the property equates to over $266 million, which most probably won't. There are huge penalties in place for foreigners that break the rules. These range from a few $1,000s to hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it would be wise to make sure that as a foreigner you follow the rules and do what's right. All in all, foreign investment rules and regulations surrounding foreigners, in my opinion, seems to make sense when the rules are followed.